And we're live. Welcome, everybody, here to the Lakers Lounge. I'm Anthony Irwin, today joined by Harrison Fagan. Normally, that's a Tuesday event, but he's on his way out for vacation. You and Brad Turner, do you plan? Are you going to Paris with Brad? What's going on?
Him and I we're hitting. It's Paris. We're going.
Oh, Paris.
Yeah. Me and Brad, we love three things. We love the Lakers, we love baguettes, and we love wine. So Harrison and BT's Paris trip coming soon.
Do you even like baguettes? Like, do you even eat bread?
Yeah.
Okay. I just never know, man. You have a weird list.
Baguettes are good. Yeah. There's no meat famously in them, or at least none that I'm aware of. I guess maybe.
Well, they get better when you put meat in them. Is the thing.
Well, true. Yeah.
No, Harrison is heading out on vacation for the foreseeable future. So he's not going to Paris. He's going to the Paris.
Don't tell people where I'm. No. I'm going
well,
on vacation.
No, all right.
They don't even know where.
I'm going to say. All right. Can I say this?
You're like, here's his address. Go hit him up.
No, here's
where he lives, so that you can break into his house. I'm just giving you all this information on a live stream.
I am not going to give away all of that. I just think it's funny that for your vacation, you are going to a wine country. I'm not going to say which one. I'm not going to say which part of the state of California you're going to be in. But I do like it is very on brand for you to take a vacation to a region of the country known for a certain thing that you do not partake in whatsoever.
Well, I mean, I think we just both had the realization that my dad is only bringing me as a DD for himself and my brothers. So, hey, I guess it's good to be wanted. Look, we can all see the opposite side of the situation with James Harden, where you have a specific set of skills and a team doesn't want you. I have a specific set of skills and that team still wants me, and they want to commit to me. And even if it means, like designated driving people to wine tours, like it's better than the alternative of having to call people a liar publicly and try and force my way out of the family.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it would be nice, like it would be funny if you did go out there and be like, you recorded yourself saying that you will never be a part of an organization that your dad is in ever again because he's taking you on vacation to be his DD. That would be incredible, but no, I do not think it is going to arrive in that place. Your parents are both sweethearts, and I do think like wine country and all of that stuff is a blast, whether you do wine or not. There's like a lot, usually really good food around there.
Whether you do wine, yes, I freebase my wine.
like people. All right, never mind. All right, no, now I need to clarify. Like, no, like using do as like a verb in the sense that like you participate in the thing, right? Not like. Yeah. Hey, do you do wine? Do you do? Like, no, it is not.
Yeah, wine doesn't mean something else. He means grape juice.
All right, that is enough kind of rambling around, though. We are going to talk today, as it is August 14th. We are and we've got ourselves a nice, juicy NBA story to actually converse about, and it's a perfect story for Harrison and I to laugh at. Just because all of the participants, everybody in this thing is about as ridiculous as it gets, and that usually brings the best out of me and Harrison. And I have a theory on how this kind of sort of helps the Lakers, which gives us an excuse to talk about this on a Lakers podcast. So I guess I'll start there and allow that to like send us off into the good time that is laughing at James Harden and Daryl Morey and Sixers fans in general. But James Harden, I'm pulling up the clip. I'm going to put the clip onto the show here in a second, just so that anybody who has been living under a rock today can be caught up as well. But James Harden, while in China, decided it was a good idea.
Is he scouting his next team?
somebody asked him how he was doing, and and this was his response.
Daryl Morey is a liar, and I will never be a part of an organization that he's a part of. Let me say that again. Daryl Morey is a liar, and I will never be a part of an organization that he's a part of.
I like the
question
woo
really,
at
how
the
are you
very
doing?
end. Just like, whoa!
Was the question really, how are you doing?
Oh, I don't know. But that.
Oh, okay. That makes the clip like 200% funnier than it already is, which is hilarious because I forgot. I already watched this thing this morning. I forgot that he says it again. He's like, let me clarify and say this again just to make sure that no one is unclear about this thing that I just said into this microphone, is that Daryl Morey is a liar and I will never play for his organization again. That is how I'm doing. Thank you. Next question.
Oh man. So that taking place in China, like I kind of wish that Daryl Morey would have retweeted his old tweet that got everybody in hot water in the first place, just to further fuck with James. But yeah, it was just so that's what I woke up to today, and you know, I am generally up fairly early because I have kids. So this took like Shams's tweet, I think, was sent at 5:30 in the morning, my time. I'm 2 hours ahead of you.
Yeah, I mean, famously, you know, China's different time zone than California.
Well,
and
no,
Texas,
but I'm picturing it. I'm picturing like being a 76ers fan, and you wake up and you get the Shams notification.
Yeah, so like six their time because you know 6 Eastern. Yeah, so they're getting up, they're getting ready to go to their blue collar Philly jobs. You know, they're packing up all their batteries, getting ready to throw them at Santa Claus.
Famously understanding Philadelphia 76ers fans are waking up, and the first thing they see is what I thought was an AI thing. Like I had, I thought for sure that this was like a fake video that like
it is a spiritual successor to Allen Iverson. So I see why you would think that. You know,
he did. Yeah, I think he did wind up holding out for a trade.
We're talking about Morey, not a game. Daryl Morey and his lying.
The thing with Harden is there is so much stuff that is out there. Like his complaints are so ridiculous. There's one complaint that's floating out there that like he was promised pizza every Friday and that they had pizza the first Friday and after that didn't have pizza, and he used that as a one of the launching points of why he stopped trusting Daryl Morey. Like that's an actual
can't
thing.
Be real.
I swear to God,
there's no way this is true.
Look, that's what we thought about the Danny Ainge thing with Kyrie stepping on the leprechaun, right?
But that's how you did actually get sacked, and then it turned out it was true later.
But it was true.
Okay, all right. So yeah, now we're just trusting any misinformation because it could be true at a later point. You're like, this is believable, so it's probably true.
My point then was that that Danny Ainge is so ridiculous that I would believe that in the first place, and then it wound up being true. And James Harden has reached a point with how petty he is and how unprofessional he is that almost anything could be reported about this guy, and I would probably believe it because he's that kind of a jackass. Like he's just
he has. I mean, he has entered that zone. We really should just call this the Harden zone. Like I don't know that there's another player that has shown as much enthusiasm for demanding trades as James Harden.
Hilariously, I think you can actually describe the defense that he plays, like the Harden zone. Like he just stands in one spot on defense.
But it's only him. He's the only one playing the zone. He's playing the Harden zone. Everyone else, figure it out. Good luck.
It's a one in box. Like he's over here and he just stands over there. Like in not box and one where everybody's working to stop the one player. No, it's James Harden who is standing over there, just like chilling, and everybody else is trying to play defense around him. And that's like the Harden zone, which works out in describing his situation here as well. I saw people also in Miami saying that I think it was Pablo Torre, was making the case that Damian Lillard should take notes from James. Nobody should take notes from James Harden.
I mean, Anthony, it's been so financially successful for him. You have to take notes on this and try and execute it yourself. I mean, honestly, I was thinking about this morning, and this is not me trying to be like a stand for the value of agents or anything like that. Like, I think there are certain cases where, they're probably not that important and, whatever. But like, this is the case for the value of an agent, because James Harden for a long time was an instant max player. There was nothing to negotiate in his contract, or very little. He was just going to get, teams were like, Daryl Morey was just going to say, hey, we are giving you this thing, we are giving you the most we possibly can. We're giving you every single concession, basically everything you want. We're just giving it to you. And so he's like, why do I need to give 10% to an agent? Fair enough. Yeah. But this is where you're starting to see the downside of that is, he has hired an agent now. Famously, he hired one at midseason last year, but you already saw, like, this is the disastrous sort of after effects of, not having someone to sort of negotiate you through that saga that he was going through in Brooklyn and just sort of immediately going to Philly, not really having someone to, sort of help you out necessarily with like, hey, let's, talk you through that saga where he ends up being like, hey, I'm going to take less money so that you can sign PJ Tucker, and then, you'll pay me next year, right? And, if he had, like some super power agency, like I do wonder if this is still sort of how things
No
play
agent
out.
would have told him to take less money last year.
Well, no, certainly not. I mean, he still ultimately could have done it if that's what he wanted to do, but no agent would have advised him that.
Yeah, and the agent would have put in place some protections, I would imagine, for the situation that. And by the way, like this, like what you're talking about is the only way James Harden looks even like decent in the situation, right? And like the theory that is out there is that he took less last season to be
Is it
able
a theory? I mean, I know that it hasn't been reported ironclad anywhere, but it seems pretty clear to me that that's what's happened based on his reaction.
I would like to see it reported a little bit more clearly, to be completely honest. And like, look, maybe
well,
it
no
just
one's
won't.
going to report it because no one wants to. No one
It
wants
would get
the
them in
report
trouble.
of like they tampered, and like that. You're never getting another Sixer scoop again if you just are like, hey, they tampered or they circumvented or they whatever. Like it's
Hashtag press on. But like I look at if that is indeed the situation, and by the way, like you're right that it's the only way that all of this makes any sense whatsoever, is if James Harden came to some kind of understanding.
Like I don't think he's this mad because Daryl Morey lied about pizza. It's.
Have you seen James Harden?
I mean, maybe
he looks like he really likes pizza.
Yeah, that's.
But,
so
but
gross with that much beard though. Like it's just like
I was looking at like his smile, and it's just like dominated by beard. Like you see two teeth in his smile.
Yeah. Well,
anyway,
hey, he's got his look, but I'm just saying like that. If I grew my beard out more, pizza would not be high on my list of things to eat. It's just like it's just it gets nasty.
Yeah. Even without the beard, pizza's difficult to eat. Like on a date, for example, that is not the kind of situation I'd be. But anyway, so
maybe if James Harden hadn't been eating pizza during his meetings with the Sixers last year, like he would have been more respected at the table. But they're like, what the hell? This guy's just.
Do you think like
pizzas and just like
Friday
dripping
pizza
the grease everywhere? Like,
do you think Friday pizza was the compromise, that he wanted every day to be pizza day?
He's like, look, I'm taking 15 million less. You got to have pizza every Friday, okay? It's Joel gets to pick the meals the other 6 days of the week. I want pizza Fridays, okay?
Yeah. So, the theory out there is, and it's something you've spoken to, is that he came to that understanding, some kind of a handshake deal. They used the extra money. Fortunately, in this case, like when Dirk used to give back the money, Dallas would just like not use the extra money that he was giving them, right?
Yeah.
In this case, they actually used the money. They brought in PJ Tucker. They traded for DeAnthony Melton, and they actually like filled the space that he allowed them to fill by taking a little bit less money. And now, as he is on the precipice of being made whole for taking that pay cut, whether it's Morey, whether it's Sixers ownership, whether it is some combination of both, they are not willing to make him fully whole, or have come to a different understanding of what making him whole would even look like, right?
Pizza every day, I think that's what you got to do. Like,
it would, yeah. Like,
do you think they tried that before negotiations like fell apart? They're like, James, well, we can't give you a full 5-year max, but we are willing to go to Pizza Friday and Saturday. Okay,
well, he's never at the. There's no way he's ever at the arena or the facility on
Yeah,
Saturdays.
that's true. He's like, we get Pizza Sundays, Recovery Sunday, Hangover Food Sunday.
Nah, I'm probably thinking it's like a delivery thing, that like he gets pizza delivered at home because the extra hours at the gym, he just does not look like that kind of person. But anyway, I looked at it from that perspective though, and I get why he would be upset about it if he thought that he was owed a certain thing and did not get what he believes he was professionally owed, right? We've worked in this industry long enough to where we've had that happen any number of times, right? Where you feel like
Speak
you
for
are
yourself. I've always been treated with kindness and like I'm not gonna say anything.
Yeah. Well, anybody who has worked in this industry and is actually being honest would say that they have experienced this, I would say. And I get it. I totally get it from his standpoint. That said, this is probably going to cost him some money because public trade demands is a finable offense. Like this is actually like,
and also you're aware
for him.
of, I don't know if you're aware of this rule, but this came out in the initial trade request saga. Like if he doesn't report to camp, there's a rule in the CBA. Zach Lowe dug it up.
Like 191st of
it's a rule where if he doesn't show up, if he just holds out all year, he is not able to just sign the Sixers can block him from signing as a free agent anywhere.
That and like if he doesn't report, he can get like a crazy fraction of the amount owed to him this year.
Yeah.
But
I mean, if nobody's really, and everybody knows that he's going to report, which sort of leads us to, this is going to get uncomfortable.
It's going to get
more uncomfortable. It's going to increase in uncomfortability.
I don't know how what that would even look like, but
I actually have an analogy for it. So I'm gonna
right.
you go ahead and give some thoughts. I'm gonna be right back.
Okay, so here's where and Harrison can actually hear me while I'm talking. So I promise he's going to be able to give me some feedback on my theory here too. But my theory is the entire league is waiting for something to happen with Damian Lillard, and they're waiting for something to happen with James Harden, and both teams are waiting. All of the involved teams are waiting for the other trade pairing to make a deal so that they can understand the market and use whatever the return is on Damian Lillard to justify the return or the expectation on what you get for James Harden. And the more that James Harden makes this ridiculous, the worse that things are going to get between those two sides, and the more likely it is that the Sixers just say, screw it, let's trade him and get it over with, which then might set the market for Damian Lillard. All right, you have your prop though. I'm terrified
I think,
for you
just
that this is your prop.
Like just to sort of bring this home, like this is Sasha. Everybody who listens to this podcast.
Oh, he's already
Sasha,
pissed.
My beautiful son. Yeah, no, he's kicking my keyboard. He is not happy right now. But Sasha, the reason he isn't happy is because, well, he doesn't know this yet, so cover your ears, buddy. But you are going on a car ride today, and you're going to go down to your grandparents' house to stay for a couple weeks. So Sasha had to get his flea med. Which he does not like getting his flea meds.
Really? Callie loves those things. They're just like little chewable treats.
He also had to put on this little bell collar so that we know where he is and we're ready to get him in his. Oh yeah, he is not happy right now.
He's so pissed.
So
planning murder.
I may have to put him down. So Sasha is
from your desk, not.
Oh, yes, yeah, I'm not. Yeah, no. I'm gonna put him down from my lap. He's still going to be in the land of the living. But so Sasha,
You
doesn't
might
like
not
getting
be,
his flea
but he's
meds
good.
and
Yeah.
his like bell put on. Well, much like James Harden does not like when his max contract demands and Pizza Fridays are not met. And so much like James Harden, Sasha decided to be like, okay, you want to get uncomfortable? You're comfortable getting uncomfortable? All right, I'm gonna shit outside my litter box right before you podcast, which he decided to do because he's evil and he's going to scratch me if I don't put him down. So
I was hoping that he would.
yeah, so it would have been funny, but I don't really want to get cat scratch fever, which happened to me a couple of years ago. So I'm sitting here and I'm lighting a candle while I record this podcast because it smells like shit in my office because he just decided to shit on the floor right before we decided. Sorry, I don't know if I'm supposed to curse on here. You're going to have to.
No, you can. Shit's not a curse word.
Okay. So I'm sitting here. I'm uncomfortable. He's uncomfortable in his little bell collar. We're just uncomfortable together. And that is sort of what it's going to be like with James Harden and Daryl Morey because I don't know, how you sort of to your point, like this is going to be, it really is more of a staring contest than these situations really are because both sides don't seem to care that the other one is going to try and make their life hell. And it's a beautiful conclusion to the James Harden, Daryl Morey saga. Like two guys who made their whole careers on not caring about like people's emotions, trying to get one over on everyone, trying to, like win every single trade transaction, every single drive to the basket, every single, just constant grifting and, like not caring about the human side of things or the intangible side of things, and like now they sort of are stuck with both of each other in decline, and they, it's sort of a beautiful ending to their, partnership where both guys are realizing it's like, wait, they didn't like me just for my like personality. He just liked me because I was giving him a max contract, or he just liked me because I was good at basketball. We weren't actually best friends. Yeah, so I don't know.
It did give us
sort of poetic.
It is somewhat productive though, because remember when like Daryl Morey kind of sort of like started the conversation as like, is James Harden the greatest offensive player of all time? And that gave way to Harden stands telling us that Harden is actually better at basketball than Kobe Bryant. You know what I have to say to that?
Daryl Morey is a liar.
I'm glad you have that in there. I challenge you to find a way to use that like as a recurring bit.
Yeah. When when Steve Ballmer gets asked about like what it's actually going to take for the Clippers to land James Harden, his response is going to be,
Daryl Morey is a liar.
I'm excited for the always just like even keeled, Sixers media landscape to get access to the Daryl Morey is a liar drop for their radio shows. I think this is only going to lead to good things for Daryl's tenure. And also the other thing too is this is not the same situation as the AD extension, right? Like AD is much younger, much more of a no-brainer to sort of give him that extension. It's not apples to apples.
Not nearly the
like
headache.
So I don't want to suggest that it is, but this is part of why. Yeah, and AD also has not shown the same level. AD had a trade request, but he still showed up and tried to play for the Pelicans. They actually
remember they were like they famously I think got fined for not playing him.
Yeah, or I don't know if they got fined, but they definitely got told they had to knock it off and they had to play him.
Yeah.
And so, AD is not James Harden's like level of agitator or anything like that, but this is why you give the extension. This is why you just do the things for the stars and why so many teams immediately just say, hey, we're just going to give the star everything because this is what they can do. And then you see the reaction from players today to James Harden's comments, and it's all universally like, yeah, F that guy. He promised you something and he didn't give it to. How are the Sixers going to sign, like star level free agents with that max cap space next summer? I don't know. Guys tend to, I know James Harden is certainly, I don't think like a beloved figure around the league necessarily, but he's not a reviled one or by any means. He's a guy who other players probably think is worthy of more respect than he's been shown by the Sixers. And this is why teams just give the guy stuff, is because this is what happens when you don't, or something like this. And then you get this rep and all of a sudden you have a harder time getting free agents if there's a tiebreaker. And it's like, like, well, am I going to go to the team of, the Lakers where they're going to give me the 2-year extensions every single year that I want to keep playing with them or whatever, like LeBron and like Kobe and all of this stuff? Or do I want to go to the Sixers where Daryl Morey's going to convince me to take less and then the next summer not even offer me a contract?
There is so much going on in this that extends well beyond Morey and Harden. One thing, a theory that I've kind of had bouncing around, and I think at some point I'm going to expand on it for Substack, is that I've always wondered, there were like unspoken agreements and like a certain way, there was a certain way to do business back when you had more former players as executives. And like, yeah, Joe Dumars at the end of his tenure was a disaster. And we have seen, other former players, somewhat kind of stumble a little bit, but like James Jones has been very good in his position. Yeah. And there are certainly success stories as well. Danny Ainge, right? Also a former player. And the thing with like former players is that they understand what it's like to be a player in this spot, right? Yeah. And
Danny Ainge was famously sympathetic to players.
Well, sure, yeah, and but that's like part of the reputation with him. Why AD specifically didn't want to go to Boston, right? It was because he saw how that was going, and how AD's dad didn't want him to play in Boston for a variety of reasons. One of them being the way that like Danny Ainge didn't like conduct business the way that players expect executives to conduct business. And one thing that I've kind of wondered in this analytics era, and this isn't me being like anti-analytics or anything like that, but I think of the people more likely to overlook human tendencies and the importance of human relationships, I think the very analytical executive is more likely to do that than the former player, because the former player has been in the other person's shoes before.
Yeah,
and
I think that's fair.
And I think one of the faces of that movement is Daryl Morey, right? And this notion that like James is just going to show up for camp and everything's going to be hunky dory. And the fact that and Daryl Morey has already done this once before with Ben Simmons, right? And I think when a player or players en masse feel like they are being seen as nothing more than trade pieces, than assets, than lines on a balance sheet, they are more likely to disrespect their side of the way business is typically conducted. And I do kind of wonder, because we are at this kind of crossroads where players and executives, I don't think have ever really been further apart, other than like the pre-free agency days when players locked out of.
I think they've been a little further apart. Yeah.
Yeah. But like in recent years, certainly they have. I don't like, this is the worst I think these relationships have ever really been. And I do kind of wonder if one of the downsides of this analytics era is the like disregard for the human element and the way business just was conducted for decades in the NBA and in professional sports. We see it in baseball all the time where, a player will, and running backs, right? Running backs in football, where they get drafted, they make like $3 or $4 million for the first couple of years of their career when they're their most useful, and then there was an executive who went on the record the other day that I saw who said like, I'm going to run this player into the ground, and then I'm going to let some other dumb team pay him, and I'll get the next body in there to do those things too. And if that is what you're willing to say, or even willing to leak to the press, imagine what those conversations sound like behind closed doors. So, like, I do kind of wonder here with Harden and with Morey, if this is them kind of going like, if this was always kind of the natural ending point in this uncomfortable relationship between player, let alone superstar, and executive who only sees player as asset. And the fact that it gets this ugly at this point between two people who you would think had like about as good a relationship in this form as you can have.
Paintings of James Harden in his house.
Yeah. and yet that has not stopped it from souring to this point. Yeah, man. Like I do kind of wonder if like, you know, one nice thing that like Bob Myers had going for him in Golden State, and I think even Rob has in LA, is because they have been on the other side of those
I was
negotiations.
going to make this exact point. It doesn't have to just be
Yeah.
former players. This is part of the rise of the executive as GM,
Yeah.
which comes with, as we've seen, with agent as GM, which as we've seen, like in LA and in New York, like doesn't always work well. Where you're setting up and it's like, oh, we know they're not going to target so and so because that's like another rival. Like that's not perfect either, but it's certainly going to give you a better rep with stars and star level player. Because think about it, like when we say players and reputation and whatever, we're really mostly talking about stars, because for the guys below that level that aren't getting the max, they're just going to go to whoever gives them the most money or the biggest role or sort of whatever they're looking for. It's not really going to be about like, oh, Daryl Morey was mean to James Harden and so I don't want to take this full mid-level exception here. Like that's unlikely to be sort of like a tiebreaker. But for stars who they're getting basically the same regardless of where they go, these reputations matter. And I think that's why that's some of I think has always sort of been the Lakers mindset. And is that going to always work out for you perfectly? No, it can result in some extremely ugly years too, but it's not but you're going to be able to get out of it because you have the rep with the stars that they're going to want to entrust their sort of time in the league to you.
Yeah, it's also why communication is so important and so vital to this. And this is something, again, that, so my dad is an engineer. My dad has an engineering background, and he is, like, insanely analytical. He's one of the, like, smartest people, maybe the smartest person I have ever really known. He can be really bad at communicating because not everybody sees things the way that he kind of does. And I think with analytically inclined people, if you aren't like on that level, there is an inclination to just be like, it's not even worth trying to talk to you. You aren't at my level, Yeah. And one example that kind of comes to mind in where it's important to be like, an analytical genius, but also like understand how people work, is actually Dr. Jerry Buss, where Kobe was like adamant, get me the fuck out of here. I do not want to be a Los Angeles Laker anymore. I am sick of dragging Luke Walton to the first round of the playoffs. Like, this is just,
there were players, I think, on that team that he was a lot more sick of dragging than Luke Walton.
Okay, all right. So who would it be? Brian Cook. I am sick
Smush.
of...
It was definitely Smush. It was 100% Smush or Kwame that he mentioned by name. Like, it was one of those two guys.
But, like, the thing with Dr. Buss, though, was he communicated clearly with Kobe. They went out to lunch, famously. They went out to lunch, and he said, look, man, we know that you want to be traded. If I could, I would trade you, but the return has to be worth trading you. And until we get that return, and I'm sure he was clear on what was on the table.
This is what Morey has communicated to Harden, but it's not working. It's like not working out because there's
if the trust is already gone, though, like the trust is already gone, so he's like, Harden's going to sit there and be like, are they including Terrence Mann? Are they including Ivica Zubac? Like, are they including as many picks as they can possibly move? Like, are you actually being 100% clear on what you were turning down in order to not trade me? Like, once that communication, once that trust is gone, that is really hard to develop again. And in the
Jerry Buss also famously, when he did that lunch, what he got? Pizza. It's again, we're finding out it's the key. Like,
that was actually the birthplace of the California Pizza Kitchen was where that
actually, I think it was over. I think they were in like France or Italy or something when they had this meeting, which is
incredible. very Dr. Buss. Like, it's I think it was Howard Beck was telling me the story of like how Jerry was saying that like he wanted everybody to have the same amount of chips and all of that stuff and just sit at the poker table and play poker against each other. And he did that in Hawaii, where he would take the Lakers for their training camps, because he would do Hawaiian training camps for the Lakers. But anyway, It
I
does.
actually I came across an incredible Dr. Buss quote what in the course of researching something for our winning time explainers that I can share it at the end of the show if we have time.
Okay. Actually, that's great because I do want to talk about winning time to this point.
Okay.
So anyway, like to kind of put a bow on this, I apologize for like making it somewhat serious here as we talk about the societal impacts of math people getting involved with sports in ways that they hadn't previously been involved with sports.
This is where it leads to is James Harden at a shoe event saying Daryl Morey's a liar. This is the natural end stage of capitalism.
That's what I thought. This is what I thought the whole time. Yeah.
Yeah.
As soon as we had the first corner three prioritization, I was like, look, 15, 20 years from now, we are going to see James Harden in China telling a bunch of people being told, they asked him how he was doing, and his response was, I hate Daryl Morey.
I really hope that was the question now. They're like, sir, the question was, is this your handwriting?
Yeah, I don't know. You've never watched it. It's an old movie, but Field of Dreams. Did you ever see Field of Dreams?
No.
So the main character takes, I think his name is.
I know the
actually
concept.
Terrence
It's like Ghost Baseball.
Yeah, but so they're walking through the hallways of Fenway Park, and and he's asking him, so what do you want? And he James Earl Jones, Kevin Costner's character asks James Earl Jones, what do you want? And James Earl Jones just dives headfirst into the soliloquy of I want to be left alone. I don't want to be considered an important part of society who's telling people how to exist and care about each other. These existential crises. I don't want to take involved. And he's like, no, man. What do you want? What do you what do you want to order? He's like, oh, a hot dog and a beer. And it's I picture that with James Harden. He's like, all right, James, what do you want? I want to say that Daryl Morey sucks. All right, let's talk about winning time.
Maybe we're all just taking this out of context, and Daryl Morey had insulted the shoe. And so, somebody was like, what do you think of Daryl's comments that this is not as good as the Harden Volume 2? And he's like, Daryl Morey's a liar. I don't want to be part of any organization that he's a part of.
I like it. I do hope that we all right, so let's say Harden and the Sixers miraculously figure this out. I do hope we get a quote or a leak from Harden himself or Harden's team that says that this video was taken out of context when he stopped.
I need it so bad.
When he stopped.
I love that we've already, speaking of agents and all that stuff, I think James Harden, I would not be surprised if we end up getting news of James Harden has switched agencies because we already got the leak today of James Harden's agent told him not to do this.
Ooh, what if it's a Russ thing where the agency actually drops Russ?
Yeah, look.
Ooh.
That is the late stage of being a star, is your agency letting you go.
Yeah. The thing also is that, James Harden is, the least sympathetic figure possible, right? He has been such an ass for so long, and you have no, playoff success to show for it.
That's ultimately why this is not going to help make more teams want to trade for him or anything. This is just going to reinforce why it hasn't happened yet. He's older, he wants a long-term deal that he thinks he's worth, that no other basketball team, including his own one, thinks he's worth. And that sucks for him that there's no one that is willing to give him that, but that's the reality. And now by trying to demand out and force your way to some other team that doesn't really have the assets to give up for you and doesn't seem to be all in on trading for you in the first place, if it's not basically for free. This is why teams are not getting involved in the bidding, is because it's we're going to have to deal with all this headache and all this stuff, and then in the playoffs, you're not even going to deliver.
Yeah. Yeah, and by the way, let's say the Clippers trade for him. He's going to expect an immediate max extension. He's going to expect, he opted into this thing, and he's going to be expecting as much money as the Clippers can possibly give him. But why would the Clippers or any team max him out at this point of his career? Why?
Yeah.
Wow.
Even Ballmer is that's a little rich for my blood.
Right? He bought the Clippers cash, and he's like, nope, that's the step.
That's a bad investment. If Steve Ballmer, who paid $2 billion for the Clippers, is telling you that you're a bad investment,
Yeah.
He greenlit the Zune. He paid more than
Clippy?
the Lakers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like for, a team that everyone in its city hates,
And his
And he's like
since,
James Harden. I don't know if I can invest in that. Terrence
he's
Mann
also
is too
since
much.
doubled and tripled down to build a new arena so that people in his
Toilets!
arena don't actively hate him in the
Yeah.
same way that Staples workers Staples
Yeah.
Center workers treat the Clippers differently according to Paul
Do you
George.
think they just toss their jerseys on the ground or something? Like they don't even hang them up. They're just like.
it takes the Clippers an extra 15 minutes to get ready because somebody a Clippers employee has to steam the jerseys because they're just sitting there wrinkled on the ground.
Yeah.
All right, I want to talk about Winning Time, and
I have not watched it yet. So.
All right, well, for those who have,
I obviously know what happens. I have read the book it is based on. I'm very familiar with the story.
So the second episode focuses on the relationship between Magic Johnson and Norm Nixon, and I would say spoiler alert, but it's in a book and it all actually happened, and you can Google all of this stuff. So
for anyone who's watching the show for the first time,
Yeah.
here you go. Here's your time to get out. We are about to discuss spoilers about
Take off.
about this
And be
story that
happy.
happened 40 years ago.
I was going to do
Wait,
this
no,
last
you
night.
titled this thing "How the Lakers Are Going to Land Christian Wood Because of James Harden." We got to talk about that first.
I was talking about it. You were off camera. I said that. I told everybody
okay.
you could hear me. Did you hear me? Oh, I guess you were fetching.
I didn't hear
soft.
that. I mean, the cat
All
was
right.
trying to kill me while I attempted to pick him up. So
All right. So essentially, Spark Notes version, this is going to force the Sixers' hands to trade James Harden, which is then going to set the market for Dame Lillard, and they will, then be able to, send him to Miami as we all expect him to be sent. And once those deals are done, the anticipation or the expectation is that, the Christian Woods, the Bismack Biyombo's of the world will then sign because that's what's holding up the entire league up right now. So James Harden
it does seem like Wood is probably going to head to the Heat if they don't also have to acquire Nurkic in the deal.
Yeah. I think Jovan reported that on.
Someone did. I know. I saw. I apologize for not attribute. Yeah, that is not my own scoop. I think it was Jovan but someone said that.
I will say from what few conversations, and at this point, it's no point in continuing to have the conversation over and over and over again. But the Lakers still feel like they have a decent chance of getting Wood. Yeah. So, anyway, so Winning Time season 2, episode 2, focused on the relationship between Norm Nixon and Magic Johnson after Magic came back from injury. And it also focused on the budding relationship between Pat Riley and Magic Johnson as Pat helped Magic come back from injury and regain some trust in his body there. But the whole time I was watching it, it made me think of Magic's approach to Lonzo Ball and D'Angelo Russell when he took over with the Lakers and drafted Lonzo, because the headache that he had while he was with the Lakers and Norm was still there was that Paul Westhead kind of sort of preferred Norm in that he could more easily fit into a system, whereas Magic was the system. And, coaches back then had much bigger egos and did not like the idea of a player being the system. That was not something that they were very inclined to participate in.
It is funny to think back that there was a time in the NBA when it's building around our best players and their strengths. Why would we do that? You got a system. You didn't fit in it. He doesn't fit in my idea of how basketball should be played. So I don't want to use the things that he's good at. I just why can't he get better at the things that I want him to do?
That's honestly what makes Phil and Pop as brilliant as they are, is that they both have ideologies about the way that the sport should be played, but they were also flexible enough to, the roster that Phil had during the three-peat was very different from the 2 three-peats that he had in Chicago. And, Shaq was a presence that he didn't have in Chicago, and tweaking the triangle to be able to optimize Shaq was something that he was able to do just kind of on the fly. And in this case, Paul Westhead, while Magic was out, devised the system, that allowed for the Lakers to stay afloat while Magic was gone. And then when Magic came back, was hesitant to rethink the system that at one point won the Lakers a championship as Magic was the system. Famously with Magic, jumping center with Kareem out, right? And anyway, so it like the whole time I was watching it, because remember, the Lakers draft Lonzo Ball, and they put into place, a series of events that would eventually land LeBron, I guess. But that's worth considering. But I always kind of wondered if Magic moved Russell as quickly as he did in some small way because he existed. He like lived through what it's like when you have two point guards who are like trying to figure out how to play together. And he wanted his guy, Lonzo, to be the center of the universe. He wanted Lonzo to be the system, so long as Lonzo was capable of being the system. And look, this is a dramatized show, and this is, even the book itself is told from various standpoints and points of views, right? But it is like, it's impossible to not think of that Lonzo D'Lo eventual, like, that was a pairing that would have worked. Like, I really wish that we could have seen that. Lonzo being like the better help side defender, D'Angelo Russell being the more capable on-ball presence that Lonzo wasn't really interested in being. Lonzo was also a great connective player on offense. Like, we just never got to see it. And I watching this episode, it made me think, like, we didn't get to see it because of the relationship or the lack thereof that Magic had with Norm Nixon.
Yeah, I mean, given what we've seen from Lonzo and D'Lo since that point, I'm not like that heartbroken about it. Although I was with you at the time that I wanted to see it, and I was disappointed that we didn't get to. Obviously, I think you and I had like a reaction show where we were pretty despondent. I think the cap space ended up helping them sign LeBron because they theoretically could have added a second max, or it allowed them to be able to trade for AD in season and all that stuff. So I even with hindsight being 2020, like, I think they made the right decision.
Like I said, it put into place a series of events that led to LeBron, and it's hard to argue with that.
Yeah, it's impossible, to not think that Magic, and the situation that he went through with Norm influenced that decision, even if part of it was generating the cap space and, all of that stuff. Because, you said the show's dramatized. It's not that dramatized, for true. all the Showtime Lakers want to push back on it. These are stories that have been in a book for 20 years that there was not a whole lot of pushback on. Now, again, our friend Mark Stein has pointed out how many factual inaccuracies on like small things and whatever there have been. Like, there are things that are dramatized for this show, but Magic and Norm Nixon not liking each other was not one of them. Those two, there was a passage in the book that I was looking at today. Spoiler alert, I guess for episode 3, they may or may not find their way to Vegas with Dr. Buss. I think this has already been in the preview, most likely. But there was a passage in the book that is not a spoiler alert or breaking any embargoes where they talk about, Magic and Norm bonded, over a trip to Vegas with Dr. Buss that he financed and, paid for everything. And they bonded over that offseason and their hatred of Paul Westhead. And so that was like, it was hating someone else. It was sort of like Kyrie Irving going to bat for James Harden today. It's like only hating their direct manager, direct managers or whatever was able to finally bring them together. The stuff from episode 2 where Norm is talking about Magic in the papers. Norm was also criticizing Westhead repeatedly off the record in the or on background in the papers, just like lambasting him in a way that you could not do today where every scrum is recorded or whatever. But that was going on. And even though Westhead sort of liked him, he thought he was an idiot. And he's like, he overcomplicated things. He was a nice guy. Everybody liked Paul personally. This is almost a direct quote, but he's like, like the system was just like guys moving to places. This was not like, rocket science or whatever, where he had reinvented the wheel. And, neither of them liked it. Neither of them were happy with each other. Not only were they competing for minutes, touches, who got to be the point guard and floor general, they were competing for women and opportunities off of the court. This is not dramatized at all. They did not like each other. It did not go well. To the point where, Norm gave the quotes that he gives in the paper about Magic, and to the point where when Magic, again, later, a spoiler alert for later on in the season, but this is something that happens in the same chapter of the book, or I don't know if they'll show this season.
I think they showed it.
But where Magic demands Westhead get fired?
Oh, no, that hasn't happened yet.
Okay, yeah. Well, that'll happen at some point. Sorry, again, spoiler alert for those of you that don't know the story of the Showtime Lakers, but does happen.
They've really they've very clearly outlined that that's where this is going, because you see the relationship that Magic is developing with Pat, which obviously works out for
which also
everybody
was
there,
a real
too.
thing. Pat was a real confidant for him, during that period, where even Pat was apparently like a company man. He supported his boss, whatever. But even he behind the scenes was like, why are we not why are we going away from McKinney's system that won us the title? Like, why are we trying to put in this new thing? And so, when Magic ultimately later on demands that, the reason I bring this up is when he ultimately later demands that Westhead, or basically says like, they got to trade me. I don't want to play for this guy, all this stuff. The reporters immediately go to Norm because they're like, oh, Norm's going to support him. And Norm hated Magic so much by that point that he's like, yeah, I don't know. They're like, Norm, you've been criticizing him off the record to us all season. And he's like, yeah, but like, and Norm was correct in this. He's like, he can say it and that guy will be gone. But if I say it, I'm cut or I'm traded or I'm whatever. But even still, he was like, yeah, like I'm not, Magic is going to be all out on his own here. I'm not lining up behind him, even if I also hate this guy because I also don't like Magic. And it's not a functional thing.
It's also interesting because in that episode, we find out that Magic was made aware of the David Thompson trade before Westhead, and that eventually is what leads to Westhead like vetoing the trade with the power that he had as the coach. That would the trade would have sent Norm Nixon to wherever David Thompson was playing at the time. And Westhead was kind of coming around to it, and then he found out that Magic knew about it before he did, and was like, "Nope, absolutely not. We are not doing this now. Veto it. End talks. We are not making this trade." And yeah, like just that entire headache, and all of that during such a formative time in Magic Johnson's life. Like, this is one thing that the show has done actually quite well, is showing the growth that came from him getting hurt. His growth as a leader that came from like not being the same athlete that he was once upon a time, as he like learns to retrust his body. And it's actually been a very fascinating look into the character, and not even the character, the person, right? The person here, and the amount of trust that he develops in Pat Riley. We know where that relationship goes. Those guys are like brothers, it's still to this day, 50 years later, whatever. And I look at, again, you're right. Things have played out how they played out. So like at this point, it doesn't really matter how we feel about, whether it was right to or not to trade D'Angelo Russell when they did. But it is context that I think is
I
worth...
love that you're going to be putting D'Lo in the trade machine all season and you're still mad about the first time they traded him.
I'm not mad about it. Because like I said, at the end of the day, they did wind up, like, it did allow for the events that
like,
led
Magic,
to
you
getting
idiot,
LeBron.
you should have done this trade, pulls up at tradenba.com. Like, should have saved him for 5 years and then you could trade him for Kyrie.
Yeah. Well, he did trade Russell at like a very low point where like he was like a salary dump,
No, I mean, they got Brooke Lopez back, which ended up like they were the only team that I guess like wasn't able to use Brooke Lopez as a productive player in his career. But
shouts to Luke.
Shout out Luke.
But yeah, I just like this show. I can understand why Magic would distance himself from the show because it is going over subject matter and
it's
it does.
pretty sympathetic to Magic overall. It shows the truth, but I think
Well, but the truth of the matter, like
truth is not his image anymore. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, well, also like the truth, like this was one of. I wish he would have spent more time on this in the documentary that he made about himself, where he I think it was for Apple. It was like a multi-part documentary.
I didn't watch
it.
And
it got into the relationship that he and Cookie have had over the years, right? And he like, I think it's the most real point in the documentary. He like kind of cries a little bit and he gets emotional talking about like how he kind of took Cookie for granted in spots. And I like a good interviewer or an interviewer who was allowed to like ask a couple follow-ups there, I think could have really gotten some interesting places there with Magic. And unfortunately, it does take an unauthorized version of those events or retelling of those events to get to here where we are in this interesting spot. And we're like, because again, he gets hurt, and the person he spends a lot of time thinking about is Cookie, because he knows that like she is important to him being whole in all of this. Like he needs Cookie the person. And in this case, like he's learning how much he has to trust Pat, and how Pat, like, again, actually bringing this conversation full circle, Pat being a former player, they use that. They kind of, they both kind of become confidants with that as the backbone of their relationship, something that he didn't share, by the way, with Westhead. Westhead was not a former player, did not play at the level that Pat Riley did.
He was a theater professor.
Yeah. So yeah, I've really enjoyed season 2 so far. I've really enjoyed the show to this point. Like I told Jen, I was watching it, and she tends to just go on TikTok while I'm watching it. But I was like, babe, I know it's the Lakers, and I know at this point, like, you have no interest in Lakers stuff because of my career. But it's a legitimately good show. It's like legitimately like good, entertaining show.
No, I've been really busy, like sort of prepping for vacation and like with work. But yeah, I'm planning to binge, the episodes that have come out so far. I love season 1. This is not me like protesting because it's not the real version of history. I haven't gotten a chance to watch it yet.
All right. Do you have any misfortunes of the week or anything like that?
I mean, I think I gave my misfortune of the week, but I did want to read you, this quote from Dr. Buss, just speaking to this era and like how different it was and all of that I came across while doing some like winning time research or whatever. This was, the point where Paul Westhead really like fought to sign Mitch Kupchak to this big contract. This will probably come up at some point this season, maybe. But it was. They're talking about Mitch Kupchak and all of this stuff, and the Lakers, they were ready. Like, they didn't care if they got criticism and complaints from other teams about how much they were spending. One of the Sixers GM at the time, on the record, this is pre-anonymous league sources, whatever. He said this kind of about the Kupchak signing for $800,000 for a bench player. The league was extremely upset about this. Sixers GM Pat Williams said in an article at the time in the LA Times, this kind of thing frightens me. You can't just operate with that kind of economic insanity. Boy, oh boy.
Look,
so I mean, this is the
Mitch
context.
Mitch is a pretty good player, but that's a lot of money. $800,000 for Mitch Kupchak.
Yeah. So they're going through and they're talking about this, and the Lakers would do financially whatever it took. So so Buss says this to a reporter. Is Westhead a real genius? Buss asked. We'll find out. He asked me to get the talent. He wanted it this way. Now we'll find out what he can do. Can you imagine if an NBA owner gave that quote in today's day? Like, imagine if Jeannie just like next week didn't and Jeannie would never do this. She's not that type of personality type, but I'm just saying hypothetically, like if she just went out and she's like, well, Rob asked for the money. I spent. And so we gave him the talent. So, good luck. Let's see if he's a good GM. Or let's see if Darvin's a good coach. We went out and spent. Let's see if Darvin's good at his job or not.
It is funny, like they start the season and like the first time you see Westhead after winning the championship, he has this like brand new mullet. He's wearing like a nice coat. He has all this like swag having won the championship. But like really the reality is like Jack McKinney was the genius that like first got it to really click. And like, what was it? Was it Pat Riley? I think Pat Riley says this to him, no. Actually, it was Jerry West. Jerry West was like, "You only have that stupid ring because Jack took a digger off of a whatever random bike it was." It was such like a perfect Jerry West quote that,
which is not really inaccurate of like how Jerry West felt about the whole thing. I don't know if he actually like winning time. Jerry West screamed it at him and did it that profanely.
He did,
but Jerry West like is sort of in the book is this presence of like, what is going on here? Why are we doing this? And that was semi-accurate as well. And to the point that McKinney was the real genius behind it. Like while Pat Riley may have supported Westhead at the time, and it's pretty clear that it didn't seem like even based on the book's portrayal, which is pretty unvarnished about how things went down and if people were scheming or doing whatever, even that is like, he was supportive of Riley or of Westhead at the time. This wasn't like a Phil Jackson with Doug Collins situation where he's sort of like kind of scheming behind the scenes to like shank him out basically. That Pat Riley was supportive of Westhead, but even he when he comes in as the coach eventually, he's like, we're going back to Showtime. Like, we're doing what McKinney wanted us to do. He made some tweaks here and there, whatever, to how he saw the game, but it was mostly like, we're going back to this running thing that worked really well for us and, was great. And even he still leaves McKinney, or I think Jack McKinney actually recently passed, he might still be, but either way, he still has like all sorts of, I doubt he goes to a lot of NBA games is my point, but Pat Riley, as of the writing of this book, still left McKinney tickets to Heat games regularly, just as like, hey, like if you want to come out, like, I credit you a lot for my career in this sort of thing.
McKinney passed away in 2018.
Okay.
But he did live in Florida, to your point, and was able to go to Heat games all the way up until
Riley would still leave him tickets regularly at the box office if he wanted to go.
Yeah, so they actually do
clearly thought highly of him and his basketball mind.
Yeah, they go to this system when Magic goes down and they're running to these spots, and then he basically says, like, you get to your spot, if you're in one of your designated spots and you have the ball, shoot it, right? Yeah. He wanted to get up as much shots as possible from good spots to overwhelm teams mathematically, right? Again, bringing this thing full circle, the math guy not understanding how to talk to people is a trend that like,
Paul Westhead was the original. He invented Morey Ball. He's too early.
You think Paul Westhead is like sitting here like dunking on James Harden? Like, keep whining.
I mean,
fat
considering
ass.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, considering that, like, every quote in the book is Paul was a nice guy, but he wasn't that smart, like, I don't think that he sort of got done wrong.
But so...
Or at least not a basketball genius is sort of how the book is portraying him. Like, I mean, he may have been smart relatively, but...
Yeah, like, they go to a practice. There's, like, a scene where
definitely
they're
not a
practicing.
people managing genius.
No. I don't get that vibe either from him. But they go to one of the scenes is they go to a practice and it's like Magic's first practice back, and he spends like a lot of it with his like palms facing upward, like, when do I get the ball kind of thing.
Yeah.
And Pat is like on the sideline, like, hey, when are we getting Magic the ball again? Like, is that that's gonna happen again? Right?
What step of the system is that?
Yeah, like,
if your system is taking the ball out of Magic Johnson's hands, I'm willing to go out there on a limb and say it's a bad system.
It is funny that, like, Pat Riley, like, to your point earlier, Pat Riley, what makes him a genius, or was seen as a genius early on as a coach, was that he was like, hey, can we get Magic the ball?
Yeah. Again, a revolutionary stance at the time of like, hey, maybe our best players should touch the ball as much as possible.
Right. Just shows how far we've come. All right, that is going to do it here for this episode.
Pat didn't have all good ideas. He had some bad ones, like, we're gonna run like 3 hours of wind sprints in the finals and injure, our star player. But he had some good ones too. I'd say on balance, Pat Riley made more good decisions in basketball than bad. I'm willing to say that too.
Still to this day, pretty good executive, Pat Riley.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll see this summer. His legacy's on the line. Like, did he let all of his free agents go for nothing, or is he actually going to trade for Dame? But I'm going to guess if they do get Dame, ball's going to be in his hands a decent amount. I think.
No, I don't think Dame's going to be setting screens on the weak side.
Jimmy Butler gets to touch the ball a fair amount. I think this Pat Riley, he's a sharp guy, like smart coaching tree he has with Eric Spoelstra and all that too.
Yeah. All right. Again, thank you, everybody, for tuning in the way that you guys have so far this offseason. Shouts to James Harden for giving us some content here on August 14th.
And if you want to check out the definitive read on the James Harden situation, you got to go to silverscreenandroll.com. Yeah. There's an article from Jacob there just on whether or not the Lakers should trade for James Harden, just sort of like giving it a lot of thought. You should go check it out. I think it's worth your click.
I actually thought it was a little long, personally.
Yeah, but if you listen to it, it's easier to get through. If you hit the autoplay button and it reads it for you, it breezes by pretty fast.
Yeah, you should have like multiple versions of the audio version. Where it's like different snippets of somebody repeating what the article said. All right.
Yeah.
Again, that is Harrison Fagan of silverscreenandroll.com and of SB Nation. I'm Anthony Irwin, and we will talk to you in the next couple days. I am also getting ready to head out on vacation as well. So we're going to start a new project that we're going to do here called the Re-Preview series, as we have so many Lakers that we are going to be back next year. So we are going to review their last season and preview how that is going to lead into next season. I promise it'll make more sense once you start hearing.
Yeah, you gotta work on that name. I'm gonna be honest. I'm not enough of a company man for you to to like not slander it on air. I think I would lose credit with the audience. I think we could work on that one. We're gonna workshop it.
Re-preview series, everybody. Re-preview.
The rereading previews.
The system. Everybody.
Yeah, there you go. It's the system.